Well, it's that time again, oil change time. With oil shops charging close to $60 for a basic oil change that's not even fully synthetic, I made my own decision to go back to changing my own oil again for the first time in nearly 20 years. I used to use a set of metal ramps that were great, but this was back when I had a pickup truck with a large amount of clearance on the front end. Now that I'm in a car, those metal ramps will not fit underneath my front end and will absolutely destroy it. So I'm giving these Rhino Ramps a try since they have good reviews and seem to have a low enough profile to clear my front end. Today we're doing a quick review of Rhino Ramps, which claim to be a strong as steel. They're made of a high-strength plastic, and they are very lightweight. These are good for DIYers who just want to do a quick oil change or just quick work underneath their car. Those of us with lower cars can no longer use those old metal ramps because they're a little bit too steep with the incline. So my car over here, it's an older Ford Fusion. As you can see in the front bumper, I've taken some hits on the front going into basically driveways and that kind of stuff that might be a little bit too steep for me. So I definitely can't use my old school metal ramps, unfortunately, because it's just too tall and too steep of a slope. These have a much lower profile to them, so should not be an issue at all. Some people are a little bit concerned, including myself, about these being made out of a polymer plastic as opposed to using the old school metal ones. But they do have very good reviews overall, and they do claim to support up to 12,000 pounds combined. And they are made in the USA, so quality control is definitely better in the USA than if made overseas. So far, the plastic, just pushing on it is extremely hard and rigid. We'll get this taken out a little bit more to look at this. And let's just see here. The width is also pretty wide too. It looks like it's at least 12 inches across, maybe a little bit more. Can't really tell on the tape measure on me, but you definitely get probably just about any kind of car or truck on this thing, no problems, as long as it's obviously under the weight limit. All right, so flipping these over, we do see we have a nice little rubber pad here, so that in case you have like a finished garage with that epoxy resin, it won't slip around as much, although I don't know how it's going to fare towards the back, just because there's no rubber pad on there. Maybe it'll slip around, I'm not sure. Just gotta be careful with that. Of course, if you're using just a regular smooth epoxy garage floor, you may have to put some more rubber underneath just to make sure it doesn't slip around. As we see here, it says do not exceed rated capacity, 3,000 pounds each, 6,000 per pair, 12,000 gross weight. So the 12,000 pound rating means that if you had 4 of these ramps and put one under each wheel, that it would support 3,000 pounds per ramp. Each pair of 2 can support 6,000 pounds. You would do similar math with the 16,000 pound rated ramps as well, where each ramp would support 4,000 pounds each, or each pair of 2 can support 8,000 pounds. For those of you with a bigger truck or car that will go over this weight limit, they do have a higher rated version of these ramps that can handle higher capacity. You may want to go with those if that's going to be a concern for you. So far, just trying to move the plastic around, it's not very flexible, which is good, because obviously you don't want it to crack on you. I mean, there's a little bit of flex to it, obviously, to give, but it's not like, it's not like cheap plastic or anything like that. You don't have to worry about it cracking on you. This all feels really solid, too. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is actually pretty solid for plastic, so I don't think we'll have any issues with this. I would be careful, though, just because it is a plastic-based product. If you're using this in extreme heat or extreme cold, that can obviously have a negative impact on the plastic strength and integrity. So either one of those, I think in extreme cold, it would be more likely to crack. In extreme heat, it would be more likely to possibly, I don't want to say melt, but maybe deform a little bit more. And especially if you leave that in the heat, forget about it, it could possibly get even worse. So I definitely use this during more temperate temperatures. Right now it's like 60 degrees outside, so it's fine. I wouldn't use this in like below 30 degree weather or 100 degree weather, directly for very long, just in case. So if you're not storing this in a temperature controlled area, just be mindful of when you use these. You may want to bring them into a room temperature location for a couple hours just to fully warm up and get back to full strength. Otherwise, if you use during super cold, super heat, you could possibly have a problem. Probably not, but I'm sure with enough usage it could be an issue. So, and as we look here at the top, we have this nice little bump area to stop you from going up. This is good because it's always a concern of mine that I'm going to kind of like overdrive these things and wind up kind of not really beaching myself, but probably putting my body frame on top of this thing by accident by overdriving. So this is a pretty deep slope here. It's probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches tall. So if you want to drive over these, you're really going to have to try and not be paying attention. So obviously we'll be very careful going up this. As you can see from the photo, these ramps have a 17-degree incline. The race ramp site has a really easy way to figure out what the appropriately sized ramp for your style of car is by taking a measurement with a 36-inch or 3-yard yardstick. If you don't have a yardstick, you can always improvise with a tape measure, a long piece of cardboard or wood with that measurement indicated on there. I'm actually going to use this drywall T-square. You'll actually need 2 of these, or just a tape measure, to do the second measurement. In my case, I have a drywall T-square that works perfectly for this. I went ahead and marked off a 36-inch spot on my drywall T-square with a piece of masking tape so that you can see from the side. Go ahead and put the front of your measurement device right underneath the front of your tire towards the middle. Then incline it up until it hits your front bumper. From there, take your secondary measuring device, in my case a tape measure, and measure from the ground to where the 36-inch mark is on your measuring stick. Mine is about 11 inches. Plug this info into the race ramps calculator as I'm doing, and it'll tell you your general angle of attack and which ramps will work best for you. Mine is about 17.7 degrees, which means I'm slightly over the Rhino Ramps angle, but let's see if I should be able to just make it. If your angle of attack is greater than 17, then you probably shouldn't use these Rhino Ramps because they'll run up against the bottom of your front bumper, but otherwise you should be okay. You'll probably want to check out some of the offerings that Race Ramps has, since they have many variations and can probably accommodate just about any car, even if custom lowered, but be prepared to pay up for them. They are not cheap, but from what I hear, they are very good quality. So when you aim this, always try to make the tire dead center of the ramp. It can be a little bit tricky for cars that have like a lower front end, as you see here. I can't quite see 100%, but you know, you may have to crawl underneath a bit and look on both sides, kind of like I would here, just to make sure that I have it centered. Now, obviously, before I drive up this, I want to make sure that my front bumper is not going to scrape against this. It's pretty close, maybe a little bit too close for comfort, actually. If you're like me and you have a kind of a lower front end here, you may have to be careful, and I think I'll just make it here, but we'll try this out and see what happens. And obviously when you do this, make sure you're in a nice straight level surface. Now, my driveway is a little bit older and it has some sinks and some sags here and there, so it's not 100% nice and flat as it used to be, but I mean overall it's still pretty level, so I think we'll be okay here. But if you don't have a nice level surface, just be careful because it may be a safety issue. And of course, let's pull the e-brake. Don't want that rolling back on us. Be sure to chock the wheels in the back with something. I have these kind of decorative bricks here from the lawn that I just use. They're nice and tall. So, you know, you could use a piece of wood or something like that too. They also sell the Chock set too with these ramps. If you want to use those as plastic ones, just, you know, neatly fit back in the profile of the tire so they won't go backwards. I just use these in a pinch. It's great. It's really heavy. It's obviously got a rough surface, so it won't move back and forth easily on the asphalt. So I like to use these, but anything is good as long as it's big enough to stop your car from going backwards. All right, it was a little bit tight going up. We'll have to be careful going back down, especially, but it actually cleared my front bumper, thankfully. So, and as you see here, we're right up against the lip here. So definitely gave you good feedback when you hit it, when you're in the car, so you know you hit it, so you don't go over. And check out this side too, so we're both level on both sides. Obviously you don't want one being, you know, one tire being back more, one tire being forward more. That obviously not be safe and good, so we're all aligned there. Honestly, it's kind of hard to do that unless you didn't fully push up the ramp against both tires, so unless maybe you have some kind of slippage going on. For those of you who are encountering the slippage issue when getting onto these ramps due to a smooth surface underneath them, some people have had success by using old car mats underneath them for traction. You may also want to try putting some kind of thin rubber mat underneath them, as that will also help with the traction. I would be cautious and make sure the rubber mat is large enough to cover the entire footprint of the ramp, just to make sure that it doesn't cause any weight misbalancing that could possibly stress parts of the ramp unevenly and lead to a structural failure of them. Having something underneath the ramp on one part of it and not on the rest of it cause some pretty awkward pressure points on it that it may not be designed to handle. This is good so far. Let's just try pushing on the car. It's really stable. It's not moving around. And there's obviously no signs of any crackage or any kind of noise being made sounding like it would possibly fail. So everything so far so good. Let's just get into the car real quick. Wiggle around over here. Here's our oil filter. The drain pan's back there. Yeah, so if you have to do some work in your car and you need a ramp, these are definitely very good, especially those who have maybe a little bit lower of a front profile like mine. Definitely gives you plenty of space here to go underneath and do basic stuff like an oil change or whatever kind of stuff like that. I don't know if you'll be able to go into here and change something like the transmission or something like that. It's definitely not enough space for that, but for most basic stuff like this, you should be fine. So
2 hours later.
So I actually had to leave for about an hour and a half because unfortunately, for some reason, my kit here does not come with a 15mm socket, which I need. Has 14, 16, 17, and 19. There's no 15. So I had to step away for a couple, or about an hour to get my 15mm socket, because this car takes a different socket than I usually have. And you know, it's been up here the entire time. There's still no cracking or anything like that. I don't see any integrity issues with any of this, so everything looks really solid here. I could probably leave this here for days, maybe weeks before we have any kind of issue, so no worries about the strength of this thing. It seems like it's holding up pretty well. So after being on here for about probably 2 or 3 hours in total, after I had to go shopping, of course, for the new socket, the ramps are pretty much good as new. There's no signs of wear or cracking or anything like that on the sides here, on top. There's no flexing that I'm seeing going on. Overall, it's pretty much as good as the steel ones I used to have. It weighs about a fraction of the weight, of course. The good thing about this is that it's low profile, so even my car was able to fit in this. It was a little bit tight, I was a little bit worried, but even going up and down, I went down very slowly to make sure I wouldn't possibly bounce downward a little bit and scrape on the bottom front fender. No issues. This is all solid. No cracking, no flexing. Again, just be careful with the temperature you're using these at. If it's extreme heat, it's like 100 degrees or greater, then may not be the best choice. Maybe you want to wait for it to cool off. Same thing if it's super cold outside. Maybe you want to try to avoid doing this in below freezing weather just to be safe. But I'm sure it'll still be fine anyway. Just being cautious. They are plastic in the end. And if you want to be super safe, you can go out there and buy the higher end models that will accommodate, I think it's about 16,000 pounds if I'm not mistaken. That's even thicker than these. So would I buy these? Yeah. If you just do it yourself kind of thing and you're just changing your oil or doing minor work like that, these are terrific. Way lighter than the old metal ones. I can't even begin to tell you how much lighter these are. It's ridiculous. The old metal ones are so heavy. They would also rust over time too, and sometimes if it's too hot outside, they can actually leave an imprint in your driveway because the asphalt gets a little bit soft and it'll start leaving marks in the asphalt and destroy your driveway too. I don't think it's gonna be a problem with this because the weight's a little more distributed with these. As you can see, it's all over the place. So overall, these ramps are pretty decent for someone looking to do some basic maintenance on your own car. In hindsight, I probably wish I had bought the 16,000 pound model just in case, since they're likely to last longer since they're made out of a thicker plastic. So you may want to spring for a couple extra bucks and get those instead. It'll future-proof you a bit should you get a heavier car or truck, and also provide some peace of mind safety-wise. For those of you who are still nervous about the polymer construction, Race Ramp does offer ones that are made out of a solid foam-like material that will likely hold up better in the long run, but they do cost a bit more money than these ramps. Much like anything, you get what you pay for. Check out my links below to pick up your own set of ramps so that you can start working on your own car today.